Okay, in this video, we're going to talk about object maps in JavaScript. An object map you can basically think of as kind of an array of arrays. Object maps are key value pairs, which will make a little bit more sense as soon as we do an example. So let me show you two ways that you can create an object map in JavaScript. So here's the first way. So what I can do is something like const, and you'll recognize the constant keyword there that we use when we create arrays. So it's already kind of indicating that we're creating something similar to arrays. Const, let's say I do fruit equals new map. Then I do the parentheses, and then inside the parentheses, my square brackets, indicating that this is an array. And then I'm going to hit enter, make sure I put my semicolon down there. So what I've created so far is an empty map, and then inside of that, I'll create my pairs. And my pairs are arrays. So let's say I'm running a fruit stand, that's why I did fruit, and I want to keep track of my inventory. So I could do something like, okay, I've got apples, and then let's say I've got like 400 apples. So there's my first key value pair. The key is basically like a variable name. So keys are essentially variable names. So apples is the key. The value is 400. I have 400 apples. If I want another array or another key value pair, then I just do a comma, and then I create another array. So let's say I have bananas as well, and I have a 100 bananas, comma, and let's just throw in one more, pairs, and I've got 75 pairs. Okay, do not put a comma after the last one, okay, because the comma is indicating that I'm adding another pair to the map, and I'm not, so I want to make sure I don't put the comma. So that is one way to create an object map in JavaScript. And before we go into the second way, I'll just show you then what we can do with this. So I can now say like fruit dot get, and then I say get apples, and that's going to return how many apples I have. It's not going to return apples, it's going to return 400. So I get the value by using its key, which is why I said it's essentially like a variable. So if I were to just do, let's go ahead and write this out. So document.write. Write out my value for apples and then run this. Zoom in so we can see it, and there we go. It's showing the value that goes with the key apples, which is in fact 400. Let me resize it so we can see all of it. Okay, so if I change that to oranges, run undefined because there are no oranges here. Change it to pairs. Refresh, 75 pairs. Okay, so that is an object map in JavaScript. Now, the other way that I can do this, you may have guessed when I did fruit.get that there's another one called fruit.set, and there is. And that's the other way that I can create this. So I could, instead of doing this, and I actually prefer the second way because this syntax can be a little tricky, making sure I have all the brackets in the right place, commas in the right place. So the other way is I do something like const candy equals new map, and that's it. When I create it, I just create an empty map. Then after I've created the map, now I can add values. The way I add values is candy.set, and let's say I have a Snickers bar or Snickers bars, and we can do values like that again. 100 Snickers candy dot set. Let's say I've got M&Ms, and maybe I've got 200 of those, etc. So now I'm running a candy stand instead of fruit stand. You can see how this syntax is just a little bit easier, at least in my opinion it is. I'm not worrying about where all my brackets are. I'm not worrying about the commas. I create an empty map, and then I can add values. And I could also come back in up here. I could do fruit.set, and I could add in oranges. And say we got 200 oranges. So I can add, even after I've created the map this way, I can still add additional values. But I find the easiest thing to do is create an empty map and then add the values. One last thing. So these are essentially variable names. I've done all numbers because I've been doing values, but that wouldn't have to be the case. I could do a map that maps like first names, last names, that kind of stuff. So instead of Snickers 100, etc., it could be like, say, first name and then Tom. Oops, not Tommy, Tom. So I could do strings here. I could also do something like Boolean. So this could be a Boolean value. This could also be another array if I were doing like XY coordinates. So I could put an array in there. So this second value could really be anything. The first one, though, the key is essentially your variable name, but then the values can be any data type. Okay, so that is object maps in JavaScript.